Have you ever stood in a place so empty and quiet that it felt like another planet? Imagine a vast desert where the wind never stops blowing and the sun burns with a fierce heat every single day. Most of us would look at a place like this and see nothing but a wasteland. We see a place that is useless because nothing grows there and the weather is too extreme for comfort. We see a void that we should avoid. But what if that emptiness is actually a hidden treasure chest? What if the very things that make the desert harsh are the keys to the future of our entire civilization? We often think of progress as something that happens in crowded cities or high-tech laboratories. We forget that the foundation of everything we build is energy. Without energy we cannot move or eat or think. For thousands of years we were stuck in a slow world because we only had the energy of our own muscles and the animals we raised. Then we found coal and oil and our world exploded with growth. But now we are facing a wall. We know that fossil fuels are hurting our home and we feel a sense of fear about the future. We wonder if we have to become poorer to save the planet. But there is a different story being written in the sands of the distant desert. It is a story not of less but of much more. It is a story of how a barren land can become the engine for 100 times more prosperity than we have ever known. We are going to explore how we can turn raw wind and sunlight into the building blocks of a new world. We will look at how we can stop being afraid of the climate crisis and start seeing the opportunity to create abundance for every person on Earth. On the surface we see renewable energy as a nice but difficult alternative to the way we do things now. The surface concept is that going green is a burden or a costly chore. We think of solar panels and wind turbines as things that only work when the weather is perfect. We worry that they are too expensive to replace the reliable power of coal and gas. On the surface it seems like the desert is just too far away to be useful. We think about the thousands of miles of wires we would need to build just to bring that power to our homes. This surface view makes us feel like the transition to clean energy is a slow and painful process. We see it as a struggle to keep what we have rather than a way to gain something better. We assume that the desert is empty because it has no water or soil, but we fail to see that it is overflowing with invisible power. We are blinded by what we cannot see and we stay stuck in old ways of thinking because they feel familiar and safe. Behind this surface view lies a hidden assumption that energy must be a scarce resource that we have to dig out of the ground. We often assume that there is a limit to how much we can grow because we think energy is something that will eventually run out. This hidden assumption keeps us in a state of competition and worry. But the hidden truth is that 1 hour of sunlight hitting the earth carries enough energy to power everything humans do for an entire year. The problem is not a lack of energy, it is a lack of imagination in how we capture it. We assume that electricity is the only form of energy that matters. But the hidden reality is that our world also runs on molecules. We need molecules to make steel and fertilizer and fuel for giant ships. We have assumed that we can only get these molecules from oil and gas. This hidden belief has created a bottleneck in our progress. We think that green energy is only for lighting our houses when it actually has the potential to rebuild our entire industrial system. When we stop assuming that energy is limited, we can start to see the desert as a giant factory of infinite possibilities. This leads us to a structural pattern of how energy and wealth are connected throughout history. If you look at the last 2,000 years, the pattern is clear. When we find a way to use more energy, our global wealth grows at the same rate. Before the Industrial Revolution, energy use was flat, and so was our quality of life. Once we unlocked fossil fuels, we used 100 times more energy and our wealth grew 100 times over. This structural pattern shows us that energy is the driver of human potential. Today we are seeing a new pattern emerge in the heart of the desert. We are seeing the creation of off-grid industrial cities that do not need long wires to the outside world. They use artificial intelligence to manage the wind and sun in real time. This structure allows us to make things like batteries and green hydrogen at a lower cost than ever before. The pattern is shifting from digging for energy to harvesting it from the sky. This is a fundamental change in how the human economy is built. We are moving from a structure of extraction to a structure of creation. We can reframe our entire perspective by seeing the desert not as a barren waste but as a high-tech oasis of abundance. Instead of seeing the cost of green energy as a barrier, we can reframe it as a race towards zero cost. When energy becomes nearly free, the world changes completely. We can reframe the climate crisis as the final push we needed to unlock the next level of human history. Reframing the desert as our favorite place means looking at the harsh wind and saying thank you for the power. Instead of trying to fix the old energy system, we can reframe our mission as designing an entirely new one from the ground up. This means creating green molecules like ammonia that can hold energy and move it across the world like a battery in liquid form. When we reframe our challenges as engineering puzzles like stacking Legos in the sand, we remove the fear of the task. This perspective shift turns a global problem into a local solution. It makes us realize that the transition is not a sacrifice but a pathway to a much greater prosperity where we no longer have to choose between the planet and our progress. Applying this to our daily life starts with changing how we talk about the future. We can apply this by looking for the green version of the products we use every day. We can support the idea that industry should move to where the energy is abundant rather than trying to move the energy to the industry. In your own life, you can apply the mindset of abundance by looking for resources where others see nothing. Just as the desert holds invisible wind, you might have untapped skills or ideas that seem useless until you find the right way to capture them. We can apply the principle of cost reduction by realizing that the things that seem expensive today, like electric cars or green heat, will follow the same path as the computer. They will become cheaper and better every single year. By 2028, we expect to reach a point where green molecules are just as cheap as the dirty ones. This is a milestone for humanity. You can apply this by staying curious about technology and being an early adopter of the tools that save energy. We can also apply a sense of global connection. The desert in Inner Mongolia or the Sahara in Africa is not just a distant place, it is the power plant for our shared future. By understanding this, we can feel more connected to the people living in those harsh environments who are doing the work to power our world. As we reflect deeper on this, we must realize that we are at the very beginning of a massive change. If we could increase our energy use another 100 times in the next century, the possibilities are breathtaking. We could use that energy to pull carbon directly out of the air and turn it into building materials, effectively reversing the damage we have done. We could take the salt out of seawater and turn every desert on Earth into a green forest. We could grow enough food in small spaces to end hunger forever. We could even travel between the stars as easily as we take a bus today. This is not science fiction, it is the logical result of unlocking the energy that is already falling on our heads every day. The desert is teaching us that there is no such thing as a useless place. There is only a place where we have not yet learned to see the value. The wind and the sun are waiting for us to catch them. We have the AI to manage the grid and the engineering to build the factories. All we need now is the collective will to move toward this new horizon. The transition to green energy is the one and only way to ensure that our children live in a world of wealth and health. It is a journey from the dark ages of digging in the dirt to a bright age of living in harmony with the natural cycles of the planet. When we finally unlock the last bottleneck of cost, we will open the gate to a future that looks like a miracle to us today. If you knew that the most empty and silent place on Earth held the power to feed every hungry person and clean the air we breathe, would you still see the desert as a wasteland, or would it become your favorite place too?